Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Jesse, this is my garage, and today we're talking 300ZX and 5 reasons you should own one. In the 1990s, the 300ZX was the best-selling sports car of all time at the time. When the 300ZX was introduced, it had an MSRP of $30,000. That's $59,000 today in 2021. By the end of its US run in 1996, that price had went up to $50,000, which is the equivalent of $80,000 today. During its lifespan in the US, the 300ZX made the top 10 list in Car and Driver every single year. And in 2010, the Z32 300ZX was named one of the most stylish cars over the last 50 years. Okay, that's great, but why should I own one in 2020? Number one, the power plant. This car can come with the Twin Turbo V6. There's not a lot of turbo cars on the market today, and a Twin Turbo V6 is pretty awesome. Got the Hong Kong Hurricanes putting down some gale force winds, putting down some sweet horsepower, or at least the potential to, if you can unlock that. So the Twin Turbo right out the factory is about 300 horsepower. So we definitely take a look at some of the other cars that are out, like the 350Z, Twin Turbo option, no. 370Z, Twin Turbo option, no. 400Z, hopefully. We'll see if it actually gets a Twin Turbo variant. Now, if you want a Twin Turbo, your 350Z or 370Z, it's about $10,000. See why this car, the 300ZX, is looking a little bit better. There's actually OEM parts that were made for the 300ZX to Twin Turbo it. That means it is a factory Twin Turbo car. That is pretty awesome. We don't have to go for the support for the power plant is there. It's very accessible, and there's plenty of parts. Even if you wanted to swap an NA to a Twin Turbo, I mean, you have the whole motor right there. It can be a factory style swap. Kind of like the SR20 and the 240SXs, that was a bolt-in OEM turbo swap. So this car, even if you end up with an NA one like we have, there is a bolt-in turbo option to increase power instead of having to shell out a lot of extra money to turbo something to unlock more power versus there was an OEM option for it. So number one, the power plant. That's pretty awesome that there's an OEM option to make a lot of power. Number two is the overall design and look of this car and how iconic. Nissan spent years developing this car, from the headlights to the overall style of the Z32 300ZX. The designer would not take no for an answer. The headlights they designed for the 300ZX were light years above what anybody had produced so far. They had to engineer the technology to have the headlights sit at this angle. They didn't want pop-up headlights, and they didn't want the traditional style of headlights. The design and engineering of these headlights was so revolutionary that in 1998, Lamborghini licensed the use of Nissan's headlights from the Z32 chassis to be put in a facelifted version of their Lamborghini Diablo. If the style is good enough for Lamborghini, it's probably good enough for you. So that's right, your Lambo might have Nissan parts. So the overall design and care that went into design of this car is pretty legendary on its own. Not to mention, this car was designed in the 80s. That's before Windows, before the internet, before everything that we know today. They designed this platform in the 80s and gave it the go-ahead in 1986 to go into production for the first year model to roll out in 1989. Not to mention, there's no base model of this car. There's no crank windows. It's all power everything, digital climate control. Back before OBD2, the digital climate control Tundra, my 2008 Tundra doesn't even have a digital climate control. Number three on the list is parts, OEM parts, aftermarket parts, performance parts, and all of the above. The options for a 300ZX, the Z32, are abundant, and there's a lot of companies that specialize in the performance and restoration of the 300ZX Z32 chassis. Now, like what we talked about on the power plant, is the performance parts are actually OEM parts. Turbos, we have turbo manifolds, side mount intercoolers, everything was designed. This car was designed for power. It was designed to have 2 turbos bolted to it. It was designed for the Hong Kong Hurricanes. It was designed to be freaking awesome. So not only do we have our aftermarket companies, HKS, Greddy, Steelin, all those people, but we also have Nissan that manufactured performance parts out of the factory. You could buy this car new with a twin turbo setup. They even offered special variants of this car in collaboration with aftermarket companies to produce even more power and make it more collectible. So even if you're gonna get an NA one, there's turbo parts out there. They're plentiful and there's plenty of options. And if you have a twin turbo and you wanna make more power, go get sick with it, because there's all kinds of turbos, manifolds, exhaust, options for everything. This car's been around long enough that ECU tuning is easy and can be easily flashed in. You want some aftermarket parts, you got them. You want some OEM parts, you got them. Nissan still manufactures parts for this car, and places like Z1 and Concept Z make it even easier to order parts when that's exactly what they specialize, is in Z cars, Z chassis, and having the parts that you need to make your 300ZX awesome. Number 4 on our list is pricing. So like I said, in 1989, when you wanted to buy this car brand new, about $30,000, which is about $60,000 today. Now you can go on Facebook Marketplace, right-hand drive specialties, bring a trailer, and you can see that these cars go, I mean, it's a wide range. It depends on what you want to do and how much work you want to put into it. Because at the end of the day, these cars are approaching 30 years old, or they already are 30 years old. Not everybody's kept up on them, and you might have to do some work, but the cost to get into one of these cars is extremely low. You can get a twin turbo one for, I mean, 5 to 15 grand. You could probably spend $30,000 on a really rare model or a really well pristine kept model. So the cost of entry is very user-friendly, and there's different places for you to enter the marketplace at, and different things that you can do when you purchase the car. But just beware, the $2,000 300ZX is probably gonna need $5,000 worth of work to keep it reliable. The 300ZX has got to be nearing its end of its depreciation cycle, because every day one less of these cars is on the road and available for sale, or getting parted out or wrecked or lost somehow. That's one less car that you'll be able to purchase. And just like the 240SX era, I used to buy 240SXs, complete coupes, for $1,200. That is not even close to the entry price for them today. I can definitely see the 300ZX going in this way for how classic and iconic the car is overall. Number 5, and the final thing on the list, the JDM icon that is the 300ZX demands attention. Everybody thinks it's so cool when they see one. And you can tell me in the comments below, how many 300ZXs have you seen on the road driving, not your buddies, not over at your buddy's house, not in your garage when you open the garage door, but going to work, going to the store? How many do you actually see on the road? And if you do, I'm sure it grabs your attention. Now we can talk about all the JDM icons from the 90s, from the RX-7 to the 4th gen Supra, to of course all the Skylines that everybody's in love with. And I'm in love with all those cars as well. This car right here, the Nissan 300ZX Z32 chassis, was built to compete with all of those, and it had a twin turbo option, and it has power. But I do believe everybody is sleeping on this car, because why? I'm not 100% sure. I think it scared people. It has a timing belt that a lot of people don't take the time to make sure is up to date and up to speed. This car gets a rap for being hard to work on, but that's not necessarily the case. So if you want a JDM icon car, and you don't want to spend $65,000 on a Supra, or $24,000 on an RX-7, or $63,000 on a R33 GTR, you know, the 300ZX is looking pretty good, and it's a pretty much a beast of a car that I think, when done up right, looks just as good as all the rest of the iconic JDM 90s cars. Plus, you'll get a little bit of extra clout because keep your 300ZX in pristine condition and have it looking really nice. For one, you're gonna be in like the top percent of 300ZX owners and top percent of nice 300ZXs that are still around. And number two, people will definitely turn their head to look at your car and they'll be like, is that a Lamborghini? No, man, it's a Nissan 300ZX. Lamborghini got the lights from us. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned something today. If you like what we do here and you want to support the garage, head over to Patreon. All the support is always appreciated. If you want to see more content, Z32, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I have a lot of Nissans. We got a 350Z, we have a 240SX, we have a 300ZX, I even have a Nissan Rogue. So if you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button. If this was useful to you at all, if you learned one thing, hit that like button because it helps other people find this content and we can grow this channel and we can do more crazy stuff and talk about more crazy 90s iconic sports cars. Maybe I'll buy a car that's not a Nissan and we can do that too, but not anytime soon. I'm a Nissan guy for sure. This is the 300ZX. It's the project car. Make sure you see some of the other videos because we are working on this. This was a $2,000 300ZX and I bought it just because I wanted to put all the work into it. So I want you to join me on that journey while we work on it. Thank you so much and I will see you soon.